One of them had his crooked left eyebrow. Another had his exact dimples. The third laughed like he did that soft, smug chuckle I used to hear behind my back. And the fourth? The fourth had the same scar above his lip that I watched him get at 17 after falling off my dad's fishing boat. It's not every day you stand in front of a crowd of millionaires, in a room full of champagne and violins, and realize the 4 children walking beside your ex-wife are not just hers. They're your brother's. That night at the gala, my hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. But something deep inside me broke so quietly, so cleanly, it almost felt like peace. 17 years earlier, I was the man she promised everything to. I was the one buying paint samples for a nursery that never got used. I was the one staring at a ceiling fan at 3 a.m., wondering if there was something fundamentally wrong with me, not just biologically, but existentially. I was the man with the empty family tree, as she once phrased it. She said those words during a dinner party, right in front of our friends. I laughed it off like a joke. But now, years later, the truth wasn't funny. It had a face. 4 of them. And they were walking into his arms, my brother's arms, across a marble floor with camera flashes going off like it was some red carpet premiere. She never even glanced at me. She didn't need to, because this moment, this perfect, glossy, glamorous moment, it was never meant for me. But what none of them knew, not her, not him, not the donors or the photographers, was that just beneath my jacket, tucked inside my inner pocket, were 2 documents. One was the paternity report. The other was something far worse. And the reason I brought them? Well, it turns out I was never infertile at all. I never meant to get tested again. After years of carrying around that first diagnosis like a scarlet letter, I'd buried the idea that I could ever be a father. Buried it deep. I threw away the vitamins, skipped the follow-ups, even stopped answering calls from the clinic. I let it define me, because in some small, pathetic way, it helped me explain why she left. But last year, during a routine checkup for something unrelated, a kidney issue, the doctor asked, "Any history of infertility in your family?" I nodded, gave him the basics. He raised an eyebrow. "You mind if we double-check?" I said sure, mostly to shut him up. A week later, the results landed in my inbox, and I stared at the screen for 20 straight minutes without blinking. Normal. Everything was normal. No sign of azoospermia. No abnormal count. Just a clean, functional report. Like the first one never happened. I thought it was a mistake. I paid for a second test, then a third at an out-of-state lab. All 3 said the same thing. I wasn't infertile. So if I wasn't the problem, who was? At first, I thought it was some horrible clerical error from the past. Or maybe I'd had a brief condition that reversed. But the dates didn't add up. And then something even darker crept into my mind. What if the first results weren't real at all? What if someone tampered with them? It sounded crazy. But then again, so did the way Lorna left me. So did the timing of her pregnancy with her new husband. Sorry, my brother. Only 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I started digging. Quietly. Discreetly. I went to the lab where we'd done our initial fertility tests. It had changed hands, but I tracked down a retired technician who still remembered our case. "You're Cartwright, right?" she asked, squinting at me through her thick glasses. "Yeah, I remember. Strange thing, that file. I had to redo your results twice. It was flagged." "Flagged?" She nodded. "Management said it needed to be handled delicately." That was their word. Delicately. I thanked her and left before my heart exploded in my chest. I didn't know what handled delicately meant exactly, but I had a theory, and that theory pushed me to do something I hadn't dared do in 17 years, track down Lorna's children. Not in a creepy way. I'm not that guy. But I started following the press mentions, the charity blogs, the social media posts. Turns out, she loved attention. Her new family was all over town galas, church functions, and one particular holiday card posted on a local magazine's website. A glowing photo of her and her 4 kids dressed in white and gold, standing next to Kayla with captions like, "Our miracle family." The boys looked eerily familiar. Not like me. Like someone else. So I did what no man ever wants to do. I sent in an anonymous request for paternity confirmation through a private lab that could compare public DNA sources, saliva from water bottles, hair samples, anything they could legally obtain based on public access. The results arrived in a sealed envelope, hand-delivered. I remember opening it in silence, already knowing but needing it confirmed on paper. All 4 children were biologically related, but not to Caleb. Not to me. Not to either of us. I stared at the names, and that's when I saw it. The match. A man I knew. Someone we both knew. Someone who had once comforted Lorna after a miscarriage. A man who lived just 2 blocks away. A man who is now dead. Her former therapist. I didn't sleep that night, or the next, but I made a decision. If she had built her entire new life on lies, lies that humiliated me, broke me, rewrote me, then she deserved the truth in return. Not revenge, not shouting, just exposure. And we're better than the one place she least expected me to appear. Her husband's Gala. Black tie, champagne, cameras, everything polished and false. Everything just like her. It was supposed to be a silent night. Not the Christmas kind, just another Tuesday with leftovers and a rerun playing on low volume in the background. But my phone buzzed at 8:44 p.m., and everything I thought I'd buried came clawing up from the floorboards. Subject: Cartwright Family Winter Gala. RSVP confirmation plus formal attire notice. I don't know who on Caleb's side had the guts or the ignorance to include me on that list. Maybe a mass email went out to everyone who'd ever donated a dime to one of his real estate charities. Or maybe someone wanted me there. The invitation was full of the usual upper-class fluff. Ice sculpture auction, orchestra performance, dinner catered by a 3-star Michelin chef. Black tie required. Children welcome. Theme: legacy in motion. That part made me laugh. Legacy? His? I clicked the RSVP button. Yes. No hesitation. Then I started building my plan. I didn't want revenge. I needed clarity. I needed someone besides me to see the rot beneath their golden frame. I wanted eyes on the truth, not just to clear my name, but because the truth had teeth and it deserved to bite. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the event hall with a tailored suit, a folded document in my inner jacket pocket, and a guest beside me who had no idea why I invited him. His name was Ezra, a quiet man, a forensic analyst who owed me a favor. I'd once covered his mortgage for 6 months when he was between jobs. I told him I needed help reading the room. Literally. Watching reactions. Tracking movement. Because I suspected something would happen tonight that I couldn't undo alone. Inside, everything shimmered. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen galaxies. A quartet played some minimalist piece I couldn't identify. People floated between silver-plated trays of duck medallions and caviar tarts. I spotted Lorna before she saw me. She was radiant, the way venomous creatures are. Polished, sculpted. Her laugh curved through the air like a knife. Then I saw the children. 4 of them. Older now than when I last glimpsed their faces on social media. One wore a vest with gold buttons, chewing on a piece of sugar glass shaped like a violin. Another tugged at his collar, clearly uncomfortable in formal wear. The other 2 were deep in conversation with Caleb. Ezra nudged me. "You sure about this?" "No," I said honestly, but I walked in anyway. Nobody stopped me. The security team barely blinked. I signed the guest book under my old name, Bennett Elijah Cartwright. I hadn't used my full name in public since the divorce. The night wore on. Speeches began. Lights dimmed. Caleb took the stage like a king overseeing his empire. He smiled, thanked his sponsors, nodded toward Lorna, even kissed her hand. She blushed like a schoolgirl in front of the cameras. And now, he said, a moment of legacy. A large screen behind him lit up. Family photos, home videos. The kids running through sprinklers. Beach vacations. A son learning to ride a bike. Their story, their myth, playing out like a well-rehearsed lie. I waited, then walked up the side aisle, slow but steady like I belonged there. Like I was part of the legacy, too. Caleb paused. Lorna turned, and the room fell into a hush as I climbed the last step and handed him a sealed envelope. "What's this?" he asked, still smiling. "Truth," I said. "You like that theme?" don't you? He opened it. 2 pages. One paternity report. One notarized testimony from the retired lab tech. He scanned. His mouth dropped open, not wide, but just enough. The practiced smile faltered. Lorna whispered something sharp under her breath. She tried to grab the pages from him, but he held them tighter. Security, she hissed. I raised my hand. No need. I'm leaving. But not before turning to the crowd and saying, calmly, I was told I couldn't be a father, that I was broken, that I didn't matter. Tonight, I found out those lies made a family. Just not the one you think. And then I walked away. Not escorted, not dragged, just walked. Behind me, murmurs erupted like a chain of small detonations. And outside, under the streetlight, Ezra handed me his phone. You need to see this, he said. It was a live video, already on social media. Someone had recorded the entire thing. Over 20,000 views and rising. The story had just begun. The next morning, I expected silence. Maybe a cease and desist letter. Or a voicemail with carefully measured outrage. What I didn't expect was a knock on my apartment door at 6:17 a.m. I hadn't slept. I was still in the same clothes from the gala, tie loosened, jacket over the back of the chair. The envelope that detonated last night's illusion was now half crumpled beside a bowl of untouched cereal. I barely heard the knock at first, but it came again, louder. I opened the door to find Ivy standing there, Lorna's sister. Hair in a bun, no muck-up, puffy eyes, and a trembling hand clutching a travel mug she clearly hadn't taken a sip from. Bennett, she said, almost breathless. I need 5 minutes. Please. I stepped aside. Ivy had always been the quiet one, the observer, the one who, 17 years ago, didn't say much when Lorna served me divorce papers, but whose glance lingered just a second too long on mine before she turned away. Back then, I thought she was judging me. Turns out she was drowning in guilt. I knew, she said, sitting on the edge of my couch like it might vanish beneath her. Not everything, not the therapist part, but I knew Caleb wasn't the father of all the kids. I knew something was off, but I didn't say a word because. She trailed off, staring into her mug. Because Lorna always wins? I offered quietly. She nodded. She told me it was a donor, Ivy said. A one-time discreet thing that you were never meant to find out. She even made me swear to never mention it to Caleb. So he really didn't know? She shook her head. Not until last night. And believe me, he knows now. Ivy pulled out her phone and showed me a video clip someone had posted online. Not the main moment. This was different. It was after I left. A handheld recording, shaky, someone hiding behind a potted tree near the stage. In the video, Caleb was yelling. Not like a man in control, like a man unraveling. Security had closed in, not on me, but on her. Lorna had tried to tear the paternity papers in half. Caleb grabbed them back. Then the kids started crying. The caption read, Real Estate Royalty Meltdown. Who's the dad? Over 180,000 views by then. I stared at the screen. I should have felt something, triumph, closure, maybe even satisfaction. But I didn't. Just emptiness. She's not okay, Ivy whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Neither was I. For 17 years. I know, she said, voice cracking. And I should have said something back then. I'm sorry. But her apology didn't land. Because it wasn't really hers to give. There was only one person who could speak the words I needed to hear. And I knew damn well she never would. Ivy stood, adjusting her coat. She's scared you'll go public. She's a decade too late, I said flatly. But she's not scared of you, Ivy added. She's scared the kids will find out. They're older now, Bennett. They'll start asking questions. And, you know Lorna, she's built her entire image on control. I walked her to the door. Just before she stepped out, she looked back. Do you still want kids? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Not yet. Not after all this. But I knew one thing. Someone in that family deserved the truth. And it wasn't Lorna. Not Caleb. Not Ivy. The children. They didn't ask for any of this. But they were born from the lie that destroyed me. And now that they existed, with my blood or not, I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen their eyes, their smiles, their fear. I had a choice to make. Do I walk away now, before the truth drags more people under? Or do I finally step in, not to ruin anything, but to make sure what's broken stops breaking? It was a Thursday afternoon when the knock came again, but this time it wasn't Ivy. It wasn't anyone I expected, and what stood on the other side of that door made the air in the apartment feel like it turned to ice. He was maybe 14, too old to look innocent, too young to carry the weight that sat heavy behind his eyes. His dress shirt was wrinkled, like he'd yanked it from the back of a chair. He held a phone in one hand, like it was his only shield, and when he opened his mouth, his voice barely broke past a whisper. "Are you Mr. Cartwright?" I nodded slowly. His fingers curled around the edge of the doorframe. "I think you might be my dad." I didn't say anything. Not at first. The moment felt unreal, like I had fallen into someone else's memory. But I recognized him now. The second oldest, the one with the too grown-up posture, the one who never smiled in their family photos. His name, if I remember correctly, was Julian. I let him in. He didn't sit right away, just hovered by the window, staring out like he was preparing for something terrible to crash through the glass. "I saw the video," he said. "Everyone at school did, even the teachers." His knuckles were white around the phone. I could see the cracked screen and a pause clip of the gala. Me on stage. Caleb frozen. Lorna's face contorted in rage. "You came alone?" I asked. He nodded. "Took the train." "Does your mom know?" "No," he said quickly. "And she'll lose it when she finds out. But I don't care. I needed to know if it's true." I motioned toward the couch. He finally sat. "I don't know what your mom told you after the event," I said. "But I didn't come to destroy anything, Julian. I couldn't live in a lie anymore." He looked at me, really looked. Not like a kid, like someone who'd seen too much and no longer had the patience for pretense. "She didn't tell us anything," he said. "She just cried in her room." "Dad, Caleb." He slammed the door and left that night. He hasn't come back. My little brother thinks he's on a business trip, but I heard them yelling before. Mom said, "You were never meant to find out." His throat tightened. "I don't care about them right now. I want to know about me." Am I? He couldn't say it. And honestly, I couldn't either, because the lab results didn't include names, just dates and donor markers and genetic matches that ruled out certain paternity. Julian wasn't mine. Not biologically. But I didn't tell him that, because in that moment, I saw something more important than blood. I saw a boy being dragged through the fallout of lies he never created. A child used like a chess piece. And whether or not my DNA lived inside him, the damage did. The consequences absolutely did. I leaned forward. "You want the truth?" He nodded. I said, "I'm not your biological father. But the man your mom called your dad, he isn't either." His lips trembled. "So then who is?" "I don't know yet," I said gently. "But I'm trying to find out." He looked like he wanted to scream or cry or run. But instead, he said the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard. "Can I stay here tonight?" I was stunned. "You mean like..." "Just one night," he said. "It's quiet here. I'll sleep on the floor if you want. I need to be somewhere that doesn't feel fake." I nodded. "You can have a couch." He curled into it like someone who hadn't rested in weeks. And as I watched him drift off under an old throw blanket, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I wasn't chasing truth anymore. Now it was chasing me. Julian stayed for 3 nights. He didn't say much after the first evening. Just sat quietly at the dining table doing homework, sometimes scrolling through his phone with a face that looked too old for a teenager. I made sure he had food, a blanket, some space. I didn't try to be anything I wasn't. I didn't tell him what to feel or how to feel it. But on the 4th day, the knock came again. This time, it was her. She didn't look like herself. Lorna stood in the hallway wearing a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big, her hair pulled back messily, no makeup, no rehearsed expression. She looked like a woman stripped of her stage. And for once, there wasn't a trace of control in her eyes. Just panic. Not the kind people show when they're about to lose their reputation. The kind they show when they're about to lose their grip on something real. "Is he here?" she asked without any greeting. "He's inside," I said, "sleeping. He had a long night." "You had no right," she started, but I cut her off. "I didn't invite him, Lorna. He found me." She took a shaky breath and lowered her voice. He's just a boy. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't understand how much this will ruin his life if it spreads. You mean your life? I replied. Silence. She stepped inside without asking and sat on the arm of the couch like it still belonged to her, like she hadn't burned everything between us in an ash 17 years ago. I lied, she said suddenly. It stunned me more than if she had slapped me. I lied about the test. The one for back then, she went on. The doctor called when you weren't home. He said there was an error in the paperwork, that he needed to rerun your sample. But I told him not to. My hands curled involuntarily. What? Because I already knew I was pregnant, she said. I froze. That wasn't your child, she added. I knew it wasn't. And if the second test came back clear, everything would fall apart. I was scared. Of what? I asked, my voice flat. Of losing everything. The house. The security. You. I thought if you believed you were infertile, it would make sense. I could control the story. I stared at her, unsure whether I was hearing a confession or just another well-rehearsed piece of performance. You didn't just lie to me, I said. You let me believe I was broken. You let me walk through life thinking I was worthless. She wiped her eyes. It was easier than the truth. I almost laughed. Easier for you. She stood up and looked toward the hallway where Julian was still asleep. He's not strong enough to know all this. You didn't give him a chance to be, I said coldly. Then she said something so cruel, so casually devastating, it lodged in my throat. I never wanted you to find them. I didn't want you to matter. I stepped back like she'd slapped me. And for a second, her face shifted, not in regret, but in recognition. Like she'd finally told the truth after all these years, and it tasted bitter. You can leave now, I said. She hesitated, but eventually did. As the door clicked shut, I realized something deep and dark. Her silence over the years wasn't just avoidance. It was strategy. Every gap in the truth had been a design. She hadn't let things fall apart. She'd shaped the fall herself. That night, Julian woke up and asked, did she come? Yeah, I said. What did she say? Nothing you haven't already figured out. He looked at me with tired eyes. You know, when I was younger, I used to wish you were my dad. I paused. Why? Because when you disappeared, nobody spoke badly about you. And that scared me. It meant they had something to hide. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with the paternity reports in front of me and Julian's school photo beside them. I didn't care what blood said anymore. Something bigger than biology had stepped into my apartment. And this time, I wasn't walking away from it. It was Julian's question that lit the fuse. He was sitting at the table, swirling the last bits of cereal in his bowl, eyes distant, not really eating. He hadn't spoken much since Lorna's visit, and I didn't push. But that morning, something shifted. Something in the way he looked at me, like he was bracing himself. Can I ask something strange? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. Always. Did she ever mention a man named Malcolm Reeves? The name didn't register at first. I repeated it out loud, and for a few seconds, the syllables just hung in the air. Then something twitched behind my eyes, a flicker of a memory I didn't know I had. A photo on our fridge from nearly 2 decades ago. A man with shaggy hair, a smile too bright, standing next to Lorna in front of a blood drive banner. Wait, he was her co-worker, right? I asked. Back when she worked at the community center. Julia nodded. He's my debate coach. I've been around him for years. And the thing is, I look just like him. There was no malice in his voice. No te enoje dramatics. Just quiet devastation. I stared at him. Not because I doubted it, because I didn't. Suddenly I could see it. The long nose. The sharp jawline. The same clipped tone when he spoke. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say no, it's coincidence. Genetics are weird. Faces repeat. But I couldn't. Instead, I stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out a box I hadn't opened in years. It still had the label Lorna's junk written in red Sharpie across the top. I opened it on the floor and started digging. Letters, receipts, old cards, a dried-out corsage, and finally, a yearbook from the center's staff retreat. I flipped through page after page, and there he was. Malcolm Reeves, smiling in the back row. his hand resting on Lorna's shoulder. I looked up. Julian was pale. "I need a DNA test," he whispered. "For me. Not the lab. Just for me. I'll arrange it," I said without hesitation. He nodded, stood, and walked back to his room like gravity had doubled. That evening, I sat alone with that yearbook open in front of me, and I started flipping through the rest of it, not for more photos of Malcolm. I already knew the truth. I was looking for her. I needed to see the version of Lorna that existed back then, the one who laughed effortlessly, the one who carried so many secrets beneath her perfect posture. And as I turned the pages, I found something I hadn't seen coming at all. A letter, tucked inside the back cover. It wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't signed. It looked like it had been torn out of a notebook in haste. But it was her handwriting, unmistakably hers. And what it said pulled the ground out from under me. To the one I can never tell, "I didn't choose you because you were the right man. I chose you because you were the safe one. Because you'd never leave, no matter what. Because you'd stay. I used to think that was love. I know better now. And I hate myself more than you ever could." No name. No date. Just that. I closed the yearbook slowly and sat in silence for what felt like hours. Not because I didn't know what to feel, but because I finally felt everything at once. Pity, rage, exhaustion, but more than anything, clarity. She never planned to hurt me forever. She just never cared if she did. Julian came back into the room around midnight, holding his phone. "I signed up for the test. Saliva kit. It's being shipped." "Good," I said. "It won't change who you are." He looked up. "Maybe, but it might explain why I feel like I've been living someone else's life." I didn't sleep again that night, and the next morning, I woke up to a new email. Subject: Inquiry, Cartwright interview request, National Morning segment. Underneath it, a message from a news producer. Someone had seen the video, heard about the silent scandal, and wanted to feature my side of the story. They offered airtime, compensation, even help protecting the privacy of those involved. For 17 years, I'd been invisible. Now, the world wanted to see me. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to be seen anymore. Not like this. Not for the spectacle. Still, there was something I hadn't tried. Something Lorna would never expect. I picked up my phone and texted a number I hadn't used in over a decade. "Caleb's. We need to talk." Not about her. About the kids. He replied 2 minutes later. "I was hoping you'd say that." We met in a quiet park, neutral ground. I picked the spot. Caleb agreed instantly. No press. No lodiers. No Lorna. He arrived in a dark coat, looking older than I remembered, more worn down than the polished man from the Gala. He didn't offer a handshake. I didn't either. We just sat on opposite ends of a bench like men who had stood in the same storm too long to pretend we didn't feel it. "I should have seen it," he said first, eyes fixed on the pond. There were signs. I just didn't want to look. I know the feeling. We sat in silence for a while. Birds skimmed the surface of the water. The city hummed faintly behind us. "I got the paternity confirmations," he finally said. "Only one of them was mine." I nodded. "I figured. But here's the thing," he continued. "I still love all of them, even if the blood isn't mine. I raised them. I coached them. I taught them how to ride bikes. I sat through their nightmares. That doesn't disappear overnight." "No," I said softly. "It doesn't." He turned toward me for the first time. "Julian's been staying with you, hasn't he?" "Yes." "Good." He took a long breath. "He trusts you. You're calm. You listen. I think he needs that more than he needs answers right now." Agreed. Another pause. Then he said something I never saw coming. "I'm not here to compete with you, Bennett. I'm not trying to reclaim territory. I don't want to press. I don't want to win. Then why did you agree to meet?" "Because I think we can do something none of us had the guts to try before. Be honest." He reached into his coat and handed me an envelope. Inside was a legal proposal. Shared guardianship for all 4 children. No public accusations. No court spectacle. Just structure. Cooperation. A plan. At first, I thought it was a trap. Some legal ploy to keep me quiet. But as I read through it, I saw his signature. I saw his edits. And I saw sincerity. "You really want to split custody?" I asked. "They're not chess pieces," he said. "They deserve more than what we were given. They deserve to choose." They deserve to be loved by people who aren't too proud to admit they failed. It was the first time in 17 years that I felt seen by someone who had every reason to hate me. I signed the first page, not because I wanted to insert myself into their lives forcefully, but because I was done standing at the edge, waiting for permission to care. 3 months later, the plan was real. The children split their time between homes. Julian stayed with me more often. He liked the quiet. The youngest, Jamie, would FaceTime me after school to show me his drawings. Caleb and I took turns attending their sports games. It was awkward at first, but slowly, the awkwardness softened into a strange rhythm. Lorna didn't like it, of course, but she didn't fight it either. She tried, in her own way, to make peace, not with me, but with the reality she could no longer manipulate. She stayed in therapy. She stopped trying to control the narrative. And that was enough. As for me, I stopped thinking about DNA. I stopped waking up with that weight in my chest that said, "You're not enough." Because one evening, as Julian and I sat watching a documentary, something boring and British, he looked at me and said, "You know, I don't care who created me. You raised me these past few months. You chose me." I smiled. "You were never a mistake," I told him. "You were just hidden behind one." And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't dared believe for almost 2 decades. This wasn't the ending I thought I wanted. It was better. The truth didn't just break us, it rebuilt us. And that, I've learned, is what real legacy looks like. Not money, not last names, but choosing to stay even after you've been forgotten.